Good morning and welcome. Happy Sunday, your early morning intuitive guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum here with some words of wisdom for today, and not only going to share a card, but I have a little section of the book I just finished reading that I'd like to share with you also, because I think they fit together very nicely. Synchronicity, as usual, right? So let's start with some nice deep breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Good morning, Joe Neal. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Everybody's starting to pop on. There's Mel. Good morning, good morning. Welcome from the UP. Glad you're here. Awesome. Everybody popping in, breathing deeply. Good morning, Gwen. Hello, hello. From your bed. That is fine. That is a good place to be. Good morning, Ruth Ann. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Glad you're rolling in. I love today's stuff. I love when things come together, like the card and the section from the book I want to share. So, let's start with the card. Nature Portals, Inspiration Through the Peace and Beauty of Nature by Bruce and Carol Melner, who are lovely people, just lovely people. In our card, Bruce always takes the pictures and then Carol writes the content. So here's the card, and I will pretty much bet my life that was taken in the UP. We'll see. Waving back at you, Cindy. Glad you're here. Good morning, Abigail. Welcome, welcome. So our card is pay attention to details. Pay attention to details. So I'm going to move a little closer. Increase your awareness of the natural world by looking at the little things of life. Change your focus as if you're changing from a wide angle to a close-up lens on your camera. Expect interesting details to reveal themselves to you. Maybe you'll see a tiny green leaf along a rocky shoreline. See the leaf? Move it closer. But again, those are the things you kind of miss when you're doing a bigger view, or you're not pausing, but you're moving really quickly. My friend Carol Schultz, who is an amazing photographer and taught people through my retreat center, she'd take a bunch of us out with our cameras, phone cameras, good enough, and have us do all manner of interesting things. And she would tell us to look for the gifts in our pictures. So we take a picture of something. For instance, Bruce might have taken this picture and not have seen the little green leaf right there. And then when he looked at it afterwards, that detail may have popped at him. Oftentimes, like if you're taking nature pictures, all of a sudden there's an animal in the picture that you didn't see at the point you were taking the picture, but there it is. So very cool to pay attention to those things. Maybe you notice a column of ants making its way up the trunk of a tree. Look at something right now and appreciate the details. So what I pick is I have a pudding stone here on my desk that actually has a Native American ring sitting on top of it. And it's just one of my reminders. But as I look at that pudding stone, I see all the little flecks of everything that went into making that amalgam. It's just so cool. So what about for you? What are you looking at, and what are you noticing that you might not otherwise notice? The quote is Henry David Thoreau. Nature will bear the closest inspection. She invites us to lay our eye level with her smallest leaf and take an insect view of its plane. It's kind of the result of rocks getting shoved together under great pressure. So let me dig it out here. This one came from Crestone, Colorado. So you can see all the little, and when it's wet, it's really pretty. And then as long as I'm showing you that, I'm going to show you the ring too, because this is another one of those connection things. One of the native elders who lived in the Rapid River area just gifted this to me at one point. And it fits perfectly. I don't often wear it, but it fits perfectly. But I like having it sitting right there so I'm looking at it, because it's one of the things that reminds me we need to take a more indigenous view of Mother Earth and all of its inhabitants. Good morning, Janine. Welcome, welcome. And to that end, let me read a little bit out of Climate, A New Story, Charles Eisenstein. I just finished it last night. There's much in here that I want to go back and reread. I've got dog-eared pages all over the place. Oh, fabulous. Yes. I'm a rock person. I mean, my mother, when I was a kid, would have to check my pockets before washing my pants because otherwise it became a rock tumbler in the washer. But this part I want to share is about, instead of trying to, thank you, Cindy, for that, I appreciate it. Instead of trying to exercise dominion over things, power versus force kind of a deal over the things of nature, the beings of nature. What happens when we work with the energies instead of fighting against them or thinking we have to command them, etc., etc.? Whole lot of rock girls on here. That's fabulous. Awesome, awesome. Welcome to the crowd. So, I'm going to read a little section. It says, this does not mean we cannot come into relationship with these beyond human powers. We cannot impose our terms upon them or pervert them to our ends, like sawing down all the damn forests, but we might align ourselves with the tiny sliver of theirs with which we intersect. So here's a story told from two perspectives, and notice the differences but also the similarities. Good morning, Susan. Welcome. Glad you're here. The Australian activist Daniel Schneider told me a story about a protest against a fracking project in New South Wales. Thousands of people, including many Aborigines, occupied the site, setting up a camp for 3 months, blockaded the roads, chained themselves to cars, and sat on top of poles to block heavy equipment from entering. Basically, we were preparing for battle, Dan said. They found out that a force of 800 police were being prepared to move in the next week, along with agents provocateurs to create a pretext for mass arrests. The protesters prepared for a showdown, not to actually fight the police, of course, but to battle for public attention and media exposure. They had drones and cell phone cameras sending live feeds to global activists. They were prepared to win the war of public perception and expose the villainy of the police and the government. As tensions were reaching their peak, Dan proposed an idea to a group of Aborigines at the site. Everyone felt the foreboding that they were entering a losing battle, so why not try something else? Since they knew media helicopters were coming, why not make giant art installations visible from the air for them to film, instead of the usual script of police arresting activist hippies? The Aborigines loved the idea, brought out their dreaming stories, and soon had sketched designs for 200-foot giant rainbow serpents and other figures to be drawn on the ground with sacred ochre. They had also planned to greet the police ceremonially, with giant fires making sacred eucalyptus smoke, and 500 men painted in ceremonial colors with clapping sticks and didgeridoos. The next morning, Dan got a phone call. The government had canceled the fracking license. Later, an indigenous elder woman came up to him and said, "Thank goodness we let go of conflict. That is why we were successful. I have seen it before," she said. "Usually it is the same stories. The police come in, all the black fellas get arrested, lots of the white fellas get arrested, and the project continues. But this time, because we let go of conflict and entered into art and ceremony, the ancestors of the land could come in and exercise their power." I heard a different version of this story from my dear friend Helena Norberg Hodge, who lives an hour from the site. Maybe she's Helena. The town in Montana is Helena. According to her, the victory came thanks to the knitting ladies. Older women, white and Aboriginal, who, as they quietly went about their knitting, kept peace in the encampment, restrained the fighting and drunkenness that broke out among the men, and opened up backdoor communications channels with the police. Working behind the scenes, they shifted the dynamic away from confrontation. Furthermore, by humanizing the protesters, they disabled the narrative of environmental extremists that would have facilitated a police invasion. I see these two versions of the story as complementary, not contradictory. How do the ancestors of the land exercise their power, if not through the quiet faith of the knitting ladies? What power sustains those women? What holds them in peacefulness against the onslaught of us versus them thinking? In the story of Force versus Force, the deeper sponsoring assumption is that if anything purposeful is to happen, we have to make it happen. It has no room for the agency of other beings to engineer synchronicity. So again, the trees, the land, the water, all working for a healthier outcome. It locks us in a world where the ancestors and the powers of the land have no room to operate. Nor does it allow the women to wield their feminine power to hold the peace so that the ancestors and the land can do their work. In fact, it says to them, women, ancestors, and earth powers, we don't need you, we don't acknowledge you. So I love that because it talks about that synchronicity of bringing all these other very valuable kinds of power to bear on circumstances that need to change. If you haven't seen the little documentary video, Bad River, that's been making its way around to little theaters and stuff like that, definitely see it. Or once it's, hopefully they're going to put it on like a Netflix or something. But as you watch the indigenous people in northern Wisconsin advocate for their land, they advocate in a very specific way. They are relatively peaceful, quiet human beings who are merely standing up for the land. They're speaking for the land. The land is speaking through them, however you want to put that. But it isn't, we're going to punch them out, we're going to get bazookas, we're going to fight. No, that isn't what it's about. It's about, let us speak the truth of this land and what needs to change, what needs to be resolved. So, and regardless of whether or not it's in court, again, still coming from that perspective, our court system is totally set up as an adversarial system. If you don't believe me, go to divorce court. It doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't need to be that way. We don't have to do us versus them. Okay, so can you imagine saying to a couple, let's collaborate on your divine parting and find a way to make this work for everybody so it's as peaceful and collaborative and minimally damaging to you and to your children and to all the people who love all of you, both of you, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Whole different way of being. And what I like about this book is it's helping me take off lenses that have been welded to my face since childhood about how things are. Not true. Not true. There are many other ways to look at things. And the biggest lens I'm practicing removing is that lens of commodifying everything. Everything has a price. You can sell anything. Even thinking about the idea that we sell land. How arrogant is that, right? So instead of being at one with the land. So interesting stuff, very interesting stuff. So again, here's our card. Pay attention to details. There's our little green leaf hiding there among the rocks. Pay attention to details. So I'd like you to do that today. I'm oftentimes the advocate of bigger picture. Let's look at a much bigger picture here, which I still totally believe in. And let's look at the little details because there's so much in the details that we don't want to lose sight of, right? So let's do both. But today, practice paying attention to the details and see what you notice. Have an awesome Sunday. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.